Thursday, the 28th of November 2024. Good morning and welcome. It's 8 a.m. in the Gambia and live on West Coast Radio. It's Coffee Time with me, Peter Gomez. And Coffee Time is brought to you in association with partners led by WAVE, TAF Africa Global, Easy Financial Services, Bloombank Africa, Global Properties, the Gambia Experience, and the USA PEEC and GAM Food Trading.
Did you know service plots are now available at Baki? Welcome to Baki, Taft City's fourth residential estate.
Yes, service plots available at Baki with 3 years interest-free payment plan with a minimum deposit of only $94,000, and it will come with fence plot, water reticulation, electricity, solar street lights, and bituminized internal roads. Are you ready to build your dream home for yourself?
Call us now.
And coming up this morning, another conversation on the draft constitution presented by President Barrow and his cabinet of ministers, or drawn up by President Barrow and his cabinet of ministers. And we take a look at the government's projection of how it plans to make money and spend it in 2025 as contained in the budget estimates presented 10 days ago by the finance minister on the president's behalf. So I have two guests to help me out this morning. Abdoulaye Oba is the clerk of the National Youth Parliament, and Lamin Mane is almost a regular here on Coffee Time. He's with the main opposition United Democratic Party, the UDP. We also have all of Thursday's newspaper front pages to share with you. So thanks very much for joining us.
Have you heard of Cash Up? Cash Up Gambia is a mobile wallet app that allows you to pay utility bills, buy mobile credit, and send up to $300 to anyone for absolutely free. With Cash Up, you don't even need to have a smartphone to receive cash sent to you. You could use the code via text to cash in at any Cash Up location in the Gambia at any time of the day or night. Hustle free. Forget long queues to buy cash power or looking for a mobile credit vendor or even lining up at the bank. Cash Up is here to make any transaction possible with the movement of a thumb from the comfort of your home or anywhere you are. Download Cash Up Gambia on Google Play Store or iOS today for absolutely free and enjoy the lowest fee in the Gambia. Cash Up. Fast, secure, mobile money.
We begin our newspaper review with Foroya. FPAC recommends removing $416 million from the national budget. 70% pay rise for civil servants on grades 1 to 3. FPAC recommends thorough audits on MDAs. Parliamentarians critical of government's increment of presidential tour budget. 32 lawyers enrolled as advocates of the Supreme Court. Gambia's food inflation decreases slightly to 12.8%. Bissau Guinean allegedly commits suicide in Woolly West. And an interesting question by Foroya: will there be registration of voters before any referendum? Next we have the Voices front page. Is Gambia-Spain circular migration agreement a pathway to opportunity or a betrayal of youth? SK market vendors claim high taxes and cost of shop rent contribute to price hikes. Gambia hosts Intermodal Africa Conference and Exhibition. Interior Ministry expresses concerns over allegations of malicious activities over destruction of seized prohibited drugs by D-League. Defense lawyer accuses D-League of applying electric shocks on clients' testicles. Gambia's foreign exchange market remains stable, according to Governor Saidi. Fisheries Department and EU Sector Support Program organize community engagement on oyster management plan, and JIBA pleads with government to investigate escape from mile 2 of alleged murderer of Gunjurman. Here's the front page of The Point. Government invests $20 million to avoid electricity tariff increment. Deputies slam government over insufficient school grant. Nyamina urges Barrow to address its poor roads, electricity, and other needs. Jenna Bajalonjai urges collective responsibility for cleaner nation. World Bank engages with CSOs and private sector on public procurement, and DG Sow speaks on the role of intelligence in modern diplomacy. And finally, the Standard. UTG staff threaten strike over dismissed lecturers. Barrow delighted with progress of Kiang West Road Network. Gambia among 10 countries with the highest tourism export shares. Kemo Bojang explains his nomination as youth councillor at KMC. FPAC recommends cuts in all allocations for Office of the President and others, and Transport Union to hold elections on Saturday. And that's today's newspaper review. Our thanks to Foraya, The Standard, The Point, and The Voice. It's Thursday, the 28th of November, 2024. I am Peter Gomez, and live on West Coast Radio, it's coffee time. And I am so glad to have my voice back. The past 3 days have been a real struggle. Now, several African countries are currently engaged in the constitution-making process, and writing in the Oxford Research Encyclopedia of Politics, Munandulo of Cornell University notes that constitution building in Africa usually takes 3 phases. The first phase took place at independence in the 1960s and was typically led by the colonial power. Constitution making during this phase was part of the decolonization process. In the case of former British colonies like the Gambia, Ndulo makes the point that the independence constitution was British legislation, which constituted the independent state. The second phase was from independence to 1989. And during this phase, constitution amendments were made to the independence constitutions designed to concentrate power in the presidency. This was the era of authoritarian governments in Africa, which culminated in one-party state systems of government. The third phase, which runs from 1989 to the present, is associated with the worldwide wave of democratization. During this period, Ndulo posits, constitution making has centered on rebuilding the political community as well as structures that had been distorted by political manipulation and violence during the era of authoritarian rule. I suppose we all know what he means. This third phase is also marked by promoting the participation of citizens in the affairs of their own countries and the accountability of governments. Well, this third phase is where the Gambia currently finds itself, and boy, is it proving to be quite a difficult phase to manage. In 2020, the country thought it had a document to lead its march to a third republic. A vast majority of the people seemed to like the draft constitution presented by a review commission, but the government didn't, and Parliament eventually voted against its adoption. And today we are faced with a draft that the government likes because it's its own product, but the vast majority of us Gambians don't seem to like it. Throughout this week, we are focusing on the cabinet-drafted constitution, which is now before the lawmakers in the National Assembly. Our partners in this series of conversations are Gambia Participates, and joining me this morning with his views on the proposed new charter is Abdoulaye Ba, a man who has debated the new draft in Parliament in his capacity as Clerk of the National Youth Parliament. Welcome to Coffee Time, Abdoulaye. Let's begin with an introduction to the National Youth Parliament. What are you lots about?
Thank you very much, Uncle Peter, and it's a pleasure to be here, and a warm greeting to all of the listeners of Coffee Time. Like you said, my name is Abdoulaye Oba. I am the Clerk of the National Youth Parliament of the Gambia. So the National Youth Parliament is a civil society organization, but mainly a youth group that is a mirror of the National Assembly of the Gambia. And what we do is to advocate for the issue of young people and the empowerment of young people in the Gambia. But we also discuss issues of concern to citizens and the entire nation. And mainly what we do is when we have a sitting at the National Assembly is we advance most of the talked about issues, but issues that also affect young people, part of which is the constitutional development of the Gambia. And just a few months ago, we had a sitting and discussed the need for a new constitution, but also the comparison of the of the 2020 draft and the 2024 draft and how progressive they are. So mainly the National Youth Parliament is a youth led organization that purely advocates for the issues of young people. Our main partner is the National Assembly. We do not make policies, but we support the National Assembly with resources and materials, and also offer training for them during their legislation processes.
And how are you chosen? The National Assembly members are put there, through an election. Only 5 are handpicked by the president.
So the National Youth Parliament should be, let's say, a model for the National Assembly, because for us, every member of the National Youth Parliament is voted, including the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker of the National Youth Parliament, unlike the National Assembly. So what happens is youth organizations in various constituencies will identify a young person or two and advance them as representative of their constituency. In an instant, we have more than one person nominated in a constituency, then we are going to conduct a voting. And this voting is usually done by the IEC.
Really?
And after we have the voting, then the entire membership is represented at the National Youth Parliament, where we have the election of the Speaker out of all of the members of Parliament that are nominated. So they will vote in a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker. This will leave a void in the constituency where the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker is coming from, and that will warrant a need for us to be able to have a by-election to elect other individuals to represent those people equally. So, I mean, we do not have any sort of nomination. The only persons that are nominated, however, into the National Youth Parliament is 2 representative of person with disability, but also 7 administrative, 7 women representative of all of the 7 administrative regions.
And who listens to you?
So mainly the young people, the development partners, and government. We are not funded by government. We work with our development partners like the UN systems, the African Union, the European Unions, and these are the people that work with us. And mainly what we do in policy advocacy is to ensure we develop policy briefs and drafts and share this with central government and push for making sure that these are incorporated into the legislations that are made by National Assembly. But also we fight causes by having sensitization and awareness creation in and across the country.
So how do you push, for your policies to be adopted by government?
So what we do with the National Assembly mainly is when we discuss and have a policy brief and also have a report, we ensure that these reports are presented before the committees at the National Assembly. You understand that the committees at the National Assembly will not bring any foreign document that is that is not their own making. So what we do is we lobby with them and present to them the resolutions that emanate from all of the advocacies that we do and all of the discussions that we do, and make them understand that there is no way you can represent the young people better than having to hear from them directly. So when we discuss with them, we present our reports and resolutions with them, and eventually what they do is we have a give and take, and eventually if they adopt the reports that we have, they incorporate this as part of their own reports, and then they're able to table it as their own reports, and through this we're able to have a meaningful impact into the advocacy that we do.
And what's your job as clerk of the National Youth Parliament? What do you do?
So as clerk of the National Youth Parliament, I am the administrative head of the National Youth Parliament. Because assemblies operate differently. We have membership, and then we have the machinery. The machinery is where you have the secretariat, and the secretariat is what is headed by the clerk, and that so be happened to be me. And my responsibilities is to administer the affairs of the National Youth Parliament, come up with programs and agendas that the entire parliament will depend on for the whole year. So administratively, I appear as the head of the organization.
Term limits is an issue. How long is a youth parliamentarian's term?
So we have a maximum of 2 terms of 4 years. You're voted in for 4 years, and after the first term, you're due for re-election. If you want to run again. So if you're elected for the second term, you do not make it for the third term. The maximum you can have is just two terms.
Has any speaker tried to tamper with the Youth Parliament Constitution to extend their stay in power?
Not so far, but I'm pretty sure that even if they wanted to, they will not be able to, because the most difficult landscape to navigate is the space of young people, and with all the energy that we have, it will be very much impossible for a member to just want to tamper with the Constitution in order to advance their own individual gains.
Well, the irony is every government in power in Africa claims to have been put there by mainly the young people. So, why are you people not changing things in the Gambia then?
Well, we're trying to ensure that these changes happen, and I can assure you this is the trajectory that we have taken, and will ensure that this has changed, because the Gambia now boasts of with a population of more than 70% of young people, and if only these people are taken seriously, all of the meaningful developments that the Gambia want to usher in will come in. But also, if they're not taken seriously, we are willing to take ourselves seriously, and when that happens, we're able to make the most desired changes that we want. The Constitution.
The youths are happy. How true is that?
To a certain extent, that is really, really very literary. To a certain extent, the youth in the Gambia are not really very happy. This is because we've seen a series of issues that happen that are not in the best interest and in the development for young people in the Gambia. Young people are underutilized. Young people are less empowered. Young people are less represented. Young people are certainly marginalized, because if you look at, for instance, the budget is just estimated and is in front of Parliament for discussion, and the percentage that is allocated to young people is 0.25% of the entire budget, a demographic that represents for over 71%. And of course, you will understand that this is also given to a ministry that household two ministries. It's not just the Ministry of Youth, but also the Ministry of Sports, and 75% of the budget usually is on recurrent and maintenance services. There are no programs and policies coming from government that are enhancing the capacity and the development of young people in the Gambia. And this is manifested in the number of young people that are leaving the country, but also the number of young people that are leaving the jobs that they're having because they are not very meaningful. And this is also manifested in the number of young people that are leaving the provincial Gambia and moving into the centers here, because there are no decentralization of the little resources that are available or the little infrastructure that is available. So if an individual will want to say the youths are happy, that is really very imperative, and I am not a subscriber to that.
So you are not happy with the budget for 2025?
We're the least happy with the budget for 2025.
Well, another document before the National Assembly is the draft Constitution 2024. I mean, what are your views on that? I mean, you've seen the document, because I suppose during your last sitting it was debated in Parliament.
Yes, it was. We've seen the document, and courtesy to the work that we did with Gambia Participate, we've also been able to have a comparative discussion of the 2020 draft and the 2024 draft, and our views in this instance is a little bit different, because for us, the belief is that in order for Gambia to take off, there needs to be constitutional reforms, and that has to begin from somewhere. And I understand that a lot of people will have a lot of things to say about the Constitution, and a good number of people have many things to say, not because they've taken the time to appreciate the content of the Constitution, but also because of the wave of what they've had on social media. We understand that there are 26 different clauses from the draft Constitution 2020, which was really consultative, to the executive draft of the 2024, which is really very, very different. But equally, if you look at the two documents, the 2024 is a more progressive document than the one we have right now. And the legislature have a responsibility.
Did you say the 2024 is more progressive?
For me, it is more progressive
than when you say than the one we have now, the 1997.
The 1997.
Okay, let's use date so that we don't confuse.
No problem.
Okay, the 2024 is more progressive than the 1997.
Very well.
Okay.
And it's more forward-looking. And also, if you look at it, we can have it done. The legislature has a responsibility, and their responsibility is not just to wait for the document to be presented like the Quran and the Bible, without errors and everything that the Gambian people like. It is their responsibilities to take time to appreciate the provisions that are made in the 2024 draft, but also have, and they reserve the rights to be able to make amendments in areas where they think there are lapses. Like in most of the cases, a lot of people are going to cite the chapter on leadership and integrity being entirely removed. So the assembly has the right to be able to reintroduce these chapters. So therefore, what I think is that the 2024 draft constitution is more forward-looking, and if time is taken to appreciate it, it is what will usher the Gambia to where we want to go, because we have not even taken off the main instrument and promise the transition government promised, that is the coalition in 2016,
Yes.
which is now the Barrow-led administration, is that there will be constitutional reform, and we haven't taken off. So in order for us to take off, for us, I think it is important. There are a lot of gaps in the 2024 draft, but it is more progressive and it is more forward-looking. So the responsibility now is on the Assembly to be able to pass this draft and make recommendations where necessary, so that we can continue to have a document that is more forward-looking, but also a document that can always be developed when the need be.
So in short, you are encouraging National Assembly members to vote for the 2024 draft
Certainly, I do want to encourage all of the National Assembly
on the basis that they can then start working on any imperfections in the document.
Exactly, because one thing Uncle Peter will have to understand is that a constitution is not a holy book. It's not the Bible. It's not the Quran. You understand? So it will have to come with some imperfections. But then that is the responsibility of the Assembly to ensure time and again they're able to make adjustments where necessary. Because if you, in most of the cases, I think a lot of people also don't take the time to appreciate the document, because there are provisions in the 2024 draft that are more progressive and clearer than what was in the 2020 draft.
For instance,
We talk about the legitimacy of the Constitution. It is the 2024 draft that is clearer as to how rigid and independent the Constitution is than it was in the 2020 draft. But also, moving on, let's talk about, for instance, the issue of the right to marry and found a family.
Yes.
In the 2020 draft, you understand that it came with a lot of controversy because the language was not very clear. The 2024 draft cleared the language by making sure the expression and the language that is used for the average Gambian to understand is incorporated into the Constitution.
what's the language?
The language is that a man and a woman
Okay.
can found a family. Because previously, it was two adults can find a family.
Yes.
And that was a controversy because a lot of people thought that was encouraging gayism and lesbianism.
Homosexuality
Exactly.
and all of that.
And again, when you talk about the right of children, I mean, I cannot vividly put a word to the wording that is used in the Constitution, but based on the analysis and the comparison,
Which of them?
in both. But I can clearly say that the 2024 draft is clearer on the right of the child than the 2020 draft.
Okay.
So there
you can't remember the wording, though.
I can't remember the wording.
Okay.
But there are provisions in the Constitution that are clearer. I mean, and that are more progressive, even though the 2020 draft is the people's document because it was really consultative. But again, the 2024 draft is equally progressive. And for me, it is an opportunity for the Gambia to take off and then continue to develop as we progress in making our legislative reforms.
And what about clearly the most contentious issue in the 2020 draft, which is the term limit and when counting starts? Is it clearer in this 2024 draft?
So I might not be able to vividly remember what the wordings are, but I am sure of the 26 clauses that have a variation of these two constitutions, most often it is blown out of proportion. It is sometimes the language that is tweaked a little bit, and there are sometimes major differences. And let no one get me wrong, I am quite very, very clear on the fact that the 2024 has serious gaps, and that these gaps can be filled.
Is the presidential term limit one of those gaps?
It is one of those gaps.
So the 2024 draft is not even clear as to when, the term limits in the case of Barrow kicks in.
Yes, definitely, and that's an issue, and that is the issue with politicians. You understand? They are always going to want to take something. You understand? So and that's a significant gap, and it is time as representative of the people we start looking inward to what represents the people better and to what reflects the aspirations and the desires of the Gambian people more than what we just want as individual representatives.
You talk about this draft constitution, the 2024, being more progressive than the one that is in use right now, the 1997 constitution. Obviously, this one does not address the issue of term limits.
Yes.
1997 leaves it,
very open.
Very open.
Yes.
Apart from term limits, what else? Is there anything you like in the 1997 constitution that is not in the 2024 draft constitution?
I think also the 2024 draft would have covered literally everything that we presently have in the 1997 Constitution, except if I am leaving out something, because it's been long since I reflected
so
on the 1997.
So is the 2024 more, modeled more on the 1997 Constitution or the 2020 draft Constitution?
It has an element of both, but I think it's modeled more on the 1997 Constitution. However, the 26 altercation that I made, the 26 clauses that are different, sometimes do not come with major differences. There are instances which I might not be able to vividly put a finger to, but it is just the wording that I usually change. Let's say, for example, on the application for funds for young people, let's say giving funds to young people, the development agenda for young people, the 2020 draft did clearly say that government should make provision for adequate funding for the development of young people in the Gambia. It was adequate that was removed in the 2024 draft. That is the change. You understand? So sometimes there are not very many significance. It will have the language that the government will make available funding for the development of young people, but remove the word adequate. Sometimes it's a constitution. It might not explicitly talk about all of the language in detail, but then it's sometimes also very risky having to just play with certain languages and certain terminologies. But I think generally it's a more progressive and it's a more forward-looking document than the 1997 Constitution, and for me, I just base it on the fact that we can take off with this Constitution and continue to be able to make amendments so that eventually we will have a document that better serves the interests and the aspirations of the Gambian.
How much support does this draft Constitution have in the Youth Parliament? How many of you do you think are in support of it?
So it was a contentious debate because we provided them with all of the opportunities at the technical level. We provided them with all of the instruments and the materials for them to be able to compare and weigh in which of the Constitution they will want to have. Because in as much as we love the 2020 draft, it is also important we always note that it's no longer a document that exists. Because based on all legalities, that's not a document now. The moment it was thrown out of Parliament in 2020, that invalidated that document. But still, we take reference to it. So a good number of the parliamentarians are in favor of passing the Constitution with recommendation for amendments.
Youth parliamentarians.
The youth parliamentarians.
Yeah, let's qualify that.
Yes. But then there were also a few of them who believe this Constitution is not fit for purpose, and therefore it has to be rejected and then reintroduce the 2020 draft.
Will you campaign for this draft?
To a certain extent, I will definitely want to campaign for the National Assembly to give the Constitution a chance to pass the first reading and then conduct a consultation of their own, be able to incorporate this consultation before the second reading, because the National Assembly reserves the right to make it past the first reading and then conduct a consultation. And it is through this consultation they can now reintroduce some of the clauses that are missing. They reserve that right. They are the legislators. They are the lawmakers. So therefore, if they feel there are gaps in the Constitution, give it a chance to pass. And then be able to incorporate all of the comments that are required or all of the clauses that were removed and are necessary for the Constitution to serve its purpose. But if you then throw it out, where does that take us? Because I am not seeing the National Assembly bringing a draft anytime soon. Having a draft, having to work on it, or having to retrieve the 2020 draft and bring it back to Parliament.
In time for the 2026 elections, you mean?
Exactly. So giving this a chance is them making sure that we're progressively looking forward, and eventually we should be able to perfect the document as time goes on. Yes.
Well, I know one member of Parliament who has definitely made it clear he will vote against it.
I also know a good number.
That is the Fonyi Councillor member who was here on Tuesday. In that case then, I mean, if you say you know a good number, In that case, then, do you think it will pass the two-thirds majority threshold in Parliament?
Well, this is where the work of civil society and also the work of the Gambian comes in. I think it is important we weigh all of the documents and look at how progressive the 2024 is, appreciate the part that it is more progressive than the 1997 Constitution, and see a way of engaging our lawmakers to ensure that we reason with them. It's a give and take. Let them be able to find ways to let the Constitution, to let the draft pass the first reading, and then let them conduct their consultation and be able to incorporate. So as civil society, I am not speaking on behalf of all of the civil society, but then we had a coalition that discussed and had a review of the two documents. This was led by Gambia Participate. And from this discussion, we resoluted that we should be able to engage National Assembly members to pass the Constitution for the first reading and then be able to do the amendments thereafter.
And did you engage them?
We are engaging. I did have an engagement with an honorable member yesterday who was telling me...
was that my my representative from Serekunda?
No, this is someone else. And what he had to tell me is that, I mean, there is no way to consider or even look at the document. It's just not fit for purpose. This is his language, and that we are going to throw it out. But then I was able to engage with him to set some light on how progressive it is and what we need to look at. Because posterity will judge the National Assembly members for having to not be able to usher the Gambia into its first phase of constitutional reforms.
And if it survives the National Assembly, do you think it will pass a referendum?
Yes, provided that a lot of clarity is made, a lot of awareness is
Why
raised.
do you say a lot of clarity? I mean, do you sense that there is so much misinformation about the draft constitution already out there in public? It has clouded the thinking, the minds of voters.
Very well, very well. Like I said when I started, a good number of the people will not take the time to appreciate the document by looking at it. What they do is... I came out and I wrote on Facebook that this constitution is a trust and it's not fit for purpose. And a lot of people are just going to take it from there. And a good number of people do not also take the time to read the constitution or to appreciate the clauses of the constitution and compare them, look at how progressive they are. So they only depend on the hearsay and the things that are very much popular on social media. So this has created a very big cloud as to the fact that the constitution is not in any way, form or kind fit for purpose.
Finally, any piece of advice, whether for National Assembly members, the executive, potential voters in a referendum?
Yes. So for me, mainly now is the National Assembly, because all of our hopes are hinges on what the National Assembly does. You understand? So I just want the Assembly to reason and take a look at the document and understand that in order for a lot of progress to be made in the Gambia, and that is not just the Constitution, because the Constitution is the household for a lot of other developments that the Gambia want to usher in. Institutional reforms, the implementation of the TRRC recommendations, and many other things hinges on us having a new Constitution, a new dispensation. So therefore, they should be able to give the Gambian people a chance to take off with a new constitution, but also have themselves responsible to be able to make amendments where necessary so that the document reflects the aspirations of the people. So I did call on them all to be able to look at the constitution holistically, but also give it a chance and then be able to make adjustments. For the executive, the message is always the same. It is important that you have your political agendas in mind, but what is more important is understanding that it is the people that placed you with a responsibility to serve their purpose. So therefore, there will be no justification for you to always have what serves you better above what serves the people that placed you where you are. So
is that what this executive is all about?
Well, pretty much the executive serves its purpose mainly more than it serves the purpose of the people. I mean, we have seen how things are happening in the Gambia. I'm not... to a certain extent, we think this country operates on a default. And it is important that the executives start prioritizing the needs and aspirations of the people, even if it is against their own will. I understand that this is not naturally a political behavior, but it is important sometimes we leverage our integrity to be able to serve the purpose of the people first before we serve
threw
ourselves.
out a whole chapter on integrity.
And that is terrible. Yes. Yes.
All right. Abdullah, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.
I hope you'll pay us a visit again.
I will be honored.
And very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I was talking there to Abdullah Oba, Clerk, National Youth Parliament of the Gambia. And you're with Coffee Time with me, Peter Gomez.